This is proof the exodus from Egypt with Moses and the Israelites was a real historical event. In Genesis 45, 9 and 10, we know the Israelites were to dwell in the land of Goshen. According to the Strong's Concordance, Goshen was a region in northern Egypt, east of the lower Nile, where the children of Israel lived from the time of Joseph to the time of Moses. We also see in Genesis 47, the Israelites are described as shepherds. According to a source, chieftains of the Highland clans, a history of Israel in the 12th and 11th centuries BC, the Shasu were Semitic-speaking cattle nomads in the southern Levant from the late Bronze Age to the early Iron Age. They were organized in clans under a tribal chieftain and were described as brigands, which is a term that describes a gang that lives by pillage and robbery. In the Egyptica, a history of Egypt written by historian Manetho in the 3rd century BC, the term Hyksos is used ethnically to designate people of Levantine origin. The Hyksos period marks the first in which Egypt was ruled by foreign rulers. In the 18th century BC, the Hyksos conquered Upper Egypt and set up Avaris as their capital. Kamose, the last pharaoh of the 17th dynasty, besieged Avaris but was unable to defeat the Hyksos there. A few decades later, Ahmose I captured Avaris and overran the Hyksos, further lining up with the biblical account of the Israelites. According to a source, Shasu or Habiru, who were the early Israelites, the Egyptian records reveal that the Shasu pastoralists were becoming more numerous and troublesome during the 13th century BCE, and that nowadays there is no compelling reason to doubt the general trend of the biblical tradition that those pastoralists were mainly immigrants from Transjordan. As the Egyptians began to oppress and enslave the Israelites, Moses was born, and as his mother could no longer hide him, she put him in a basket in the river, where he was later found by Pharaoh's daughter and adopted. Years later, when Moses was grown, he killed an Egyptian overseer who was beating one of his fellow Hebrews, aligning Moses with the historical figure Amenmesi. Amenmesi, who was called a usurper, was a 19th dynasty pharaoh who reigned in Egypt around 1200 BCE. He was raised by Queen Sekhet, with one of her titles being King's Daughter, and there was no mention of Amenmesi ever having a father, which lines up with the biblical account of Moses being adopted by Pharaoh's daughter and raised in the royal household. According to Papyrus Salt 124, Amenmesi killed a slave overseer named Neferhotep for mistreating slaves. In Papyrus Harris, the Egyptians also referred to Amenmesi as Ursu or Su, which means the one who made himself, because he was a ruler that didn't have actual royal lineage and was in fact a Shasu. All of these sources give credence to the biblical story of the Exodus, not to mention the newer scientific discovery of strong winds parting the Red Sea to create a path of dry land, as well as chariot wheels being found on the seafloor.